This farm right here is totally insane. I got all these stacks of sand within only half a minute of AFKing. But not only that, if you want to, you can also produce tons of anvils, gravel and all kinds of concrete powder with this farm. Now first of all, what you're gonna need is a good resource pack that can showcase chunk borders and chunks. As you can see in the bottom corner of my screen, I installed one and you can do that too on my Discord server, but there are also plenty of other resource packs that work as well. In addition to that, I also have a tutorial on my channel that showcases how to find chunks without any resource packs. You can watch that, link in the description. Now whatever method you use, you will need some kind of blocks to mark the chunks. I use two kinds of blocks so I have a good contrast between the chunks. Now, as you can see, if I step over these two blocks, there is a chunk border, meaning this is the border of this chunk right here. Now I place blocks until I get to the corner of the chunk, which is right here, as you can see in the little map in the corner. So I go into this direction and I do this until I cross the next chunk, which is right here. And then you just have to continue that so you have a full square that fills out the entire chunk border. Now this is our first chunk all marked out. And here we got the second one. By the way, a chunk always has the size 16 by 16 blocks. That means if you count one side of the square right here, you should end up having 16 blocks. If this is not the case, you did something wrong while marking the chunk. As you can see, I'm now finished with marking myself 5 consecutive chunks within one row. And now the first thing that you want to do is to go to the last of the 5 chunks. Then you want to go to one of the 2 middle blocks, which should be these 2, and grab yourself some blue ice or any other kind of ice, but blue ice will be the fastest. Then you want to just build a row out of that ice from the one chunk border to the front chunk border right here. Also, you want to grab some glass and you want to place a temporal block in this position, 3 glass blocks around. By the way, you can also use regular solid blocks, so like some bricks or cobblestone, and then you want to break the temporary block. Now just extend that line of glass all the way to the end of the ice and do that at the other side as well, and we will later continue with our ice path all the way back there, but this will be a step later. Then you want to grab some water and also some buttons. Now take the water and place it all the way at the end of our ice path. Then you want to take a button and you want to place it right where the water ends, so one block after the last water block. Then place a water behind that button and it should flow in the opposite direction and should end right at the edge of our ice path. At this point everything should be looking something like this. Now take yourself some solid blocks, or if you want you can also use glass, that doesn't matter. And you want to place blocks from the glass path all the way to the corner of the chunk. You want to repeat the same thing on the other side as well, which should look something like this. Then place one temporary block in this position and go one block up. You can now go ahead and break the block. And then you want to take that block and extend it all the way to the other end of the chunk, so again to the corner right here. We will now need to have 2 more rows in the same height. This is 1 and this is 2 right here, which will give us a total of 4 rows of blocks. Now as the next step, we want to enclose everything with regular blocks or glass, as I will do it. In order to do so, place a temporary block in this position right here and go up by 4. 3 and 4. Then you want to break the temporary block, because this will spare you some blocks, and then you want to go all the way around the entire thing, which should be looking like this. As you can see in the front side, we will have a hole in this height, and you can now go ahead and close it up with the same kind of blocks that you used before. Now I closed everything up in this height, and now as you can see, this is the height that the entire cage should have. So you now want to go ahead and extend everything up to that height. This will give you a cage that has the height 4 blocks and also 5 blocks in the front side. Now what we're gonna do is to go ahead and grab ourselves some more water. If it helps you, you can also go ahead and create an infinite water source, which looks something like this, and this will give you infinite water to fill the entire thing and to use it for all the water that we need within our farm. Now the first thing that we're gonna do is to place some water in this position right here, so at the end of the lower block row, and also on the other side the same thing. Then you want to grab some buttons again, and you want to place the button in the water source, so right here and also at the other side. This will ensure that this water will always stay where it is and the water won't get deleted by any falling blocks. Next, take one more button and place it right in this position between our two water streams, and then you should have the water stream that flows into this direction. Now you can go back to your infinite water source and you want to fill the entire back row of this cage with water source blocks. Make sure that these two blocks right here are flowing water blocks and not source blocks. Then you want to go ahead and fill the entire upper level with levers. As you can see, even the flowing water won't get deleted or prohibited by the levers, but the levers will get waterlogged. This should give you a 3x16 pattern out of levers. Next, you want to turn around to the front side of our cage and you want to remove this line out of blocks. This should be the second line counting from above. You want to then go ahead and take some regular pistons, so no sticky ones, and you want to replace the row of blocks with our pistons. This should give you a 16 line out of pistons. Now you want to go ahead and take some solid blocks and you want to place a line of solid blocks, one block underneath the piston row, so in these positions. Then you want to grab yourself some fence gates. You can use any kind of fence gates that you want, and you want to go ahead and place one fence gate above every single of the levers that are in the first row. Now after doing this, you want to repeat the same thing for the second row as well. And now that we completed the second row, you want to repeat this a third time, but this time one block above, so in these positions right here. And make sure to go all the way to the end of the cage, so you got a row of fence gates that is 16 blocks long. Now that we placed all our fence gates, we want to open them as well. Now the next thing that we want to do is to grab some end rods. And we want to place a row out of end rods above the fence gate row, which means one block away from the piston heads. This row should be 16 end rods long and looking something like this. Now, as I already announced, we need to finish up our ice highway for all the items to end up being in our first chunk. In order to do so, you want to continue the line of blue ice or whatever ice variant you used, and you want to continue it all the way to the first chunk, but you don't need to go all the way to the first border of that chunk. Then you also want to continue the two sides of glass, and once you did that, the one thing missing to our ice highway are the water streams, so grab yourself some more buttons and water buckets, place a button in this position, place some water, then place another button behind the water stream and a water source, and continue that all the way to the end of the ice stream. Of course, to prevent water from flowing out, you'll always need to place a button in this position right here at the end of the ice as well. Now you will need to grab a sticky piston, some redstone, a lever, a stone brick or any other kind of solid block, and a block of redstone. And we will build a redstone clock out of this. Now, in order to do so, you want to remove this block and replace it with this solid block. You want to make sure that the solid block still is in our first chunk. Then place a sticky piston in this position, a block of redstone above, and a redstone dust in this position. This should create a redstone clock, and you want to place a lever right here and flick it. This should turn off the redstone clock, and now what you need to do is to continue that line of redstone dust. Every 15 blocks at least, you want to place a redstone repeater to refresh the redstone signal. But you can do this more frequently than every 15 blocks in order to make sure that our signal reaches the end of the farm. Then, once you are right underneath the row of blocks, what you want to do is to place a solid block right underneath, so in this position, and a redstone torch on top of that block, and it should be right underneath the row of solid blocks. Now you want to place a row out of redstone on top of that row of blocks, so all of the regular pistons are extended, and also make sure that the redstone line reaches the block where the redstone torch is on top. At this point, you can go ahead and place in your gravity blocks. I will use sand for this, but you can also use concrete powder and any kind of concrete powder, gravel, and anvils. You want to place the gravity blocks on top of the extended piston arms. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention one more thing. You will need to place a row out of buttons in this position right here, so right behind the last row of levers. It should end up be looking something like this, and it will make sure that the water stream will be perfectly working. And then you want to go back to the first chunk, because we now are ready to use the farm. In order to use the farm, I'm first of all going to throw away all the sand that I got. And then what you want to do is to flick this lever right here. Then as you can see, the sand should not drop down. If the sand drops down, you did something wrong with the line of redstone. Now leave this farm running, but make sure not to leave it running for too long. I don't recommend leaving it on for more than 1 minute, because this will definitely lag out your game. The farm is totally insane, trust me. Now as you can see, I cleared my entire inventory, and also I think that enough time has passed and I produced a good amount of sand in this farm. So now at this point, you want to flick off the lever right here, and you want to save and quit the game. Then you want to go back into the world, and probably this will take longer than usually. And once you are back in the world, nothing will happen. Everything will happen once you cross the first chunk border right here. As you can see, our game lags, and all the sand drops down into the water stream and will directly get transported toward us. Here it is, and you can go ahead and collect everything. It will all drop down and directly go into your inventory, and as you can see, within only a few seconds we produced about 21 stacks of sand, which is totally insane. Now if you think that is too insane, keep in mind that every time the pistons extend, 16 blocks of sand will get duplicated, so every 4 times 1 stack of sand will get duplicated. You can easily produce tons of sand with this farm, and if this video helped you, please don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notifications. I appreciate every kind of support I get, and then we see us again in the next video. See ya!